defining what is good communication is a different matter, and helping people to achieve good communication is also a different matter. So it's very interesting for me always to hear what industry, what the corporate world has to say, because it's the corporate world really that is setting the standard for where the academics need to get the youth to. Because we have quite a problem, not just here in India, but we have a problem all over the world. And the problem is to do basically with communication and an understanding of communication and how we can help with that. And one of the biggest problems is to do with employability. There's people all over the world desperately trying to get jobs. It's not just here in India. If you look on the Mundi index, you'll find that there's some interesting statistics about unemployment around the world. You think you have a problem here, but relatively, we'll talk about that, it's only relative. So there are some countries, for example, there's a tiny little country squished between Togo and Nigeria on the west coast of Africa, and it has an unemployment rate of about 1%. But I think there's probably not many people living there, so that 1% is really not so relevant. Qatar and Madagascar are the same. Their unemployment rates are really very, very small, but probably their populations are quite small as well. If you move into Europe, we have a huge problem there at the moment. You'll have read in the papers how the economy of the European countries has been in dire straits for quite some time. And so you have a country even like Sweden, which has an unemployment rate of 25%. That's really quite significant. And you have Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are up in the 45% range of unemployment. So it's not just India, it's all around the world. If you look at the UK and the US, we're doing all right. We've got unemployment rates of about 18%. And if you look at India, it's pretty fantastic. It's 10.5. So it's not 50%, it's not 18%, it's 10.5. But 10.5 of 1.2 billion is quite a lot of people. It's a lot more than 18% of the UK's 64 million. So your 126 million young people are all scrabbling for jobs. This is a population, this is between the ages of 16 and 24. There's about 126 million students fighting for jobs. And the ones who are going to get the jobs are the ones who have that bit of difference. We've heard the panelists all say that you can have the Einstein brain and capabilities, but if you can't articulate it, you're not going to get the job. People aren't going to take you on. And what's really important for the academic world is to understand how you can help students with that. Now, I'm from one of the best universities in the world, and we do have a mission statement, which is to help people of all ages to do the very best that they can. And one of the ways that we do it is by producing these internationally recognized qualifications, so that you know what the standard is. And if somebody has one of these qualifications and they take it to an employer, the employer knows that in reading, writing, listening and speaking, this person can actually do something with language. It's interesting to see how this problem is being tackled around the world. So Cambridge, for example, we work with ministries of education all over the world, and we have been doing so for many, many years. And while we work at a very high level, we also work at the grassroots level too. And the sorts of things that we do with both ministries and also schools and colleges are very similar. What we do first of all is to try to identify what is the problem. The problem for some of the ministries that we've worked with, whether it's in Mexico or Kazakhstan or on Mongolia or Portugal or wherever it is not really knowing how good people's language competence is. And the first question they want to ask is, how do we find out? Well, you in your colleges, you are training students who are going on to the next stage, and you need to be able to know exactly what their language ability is. There's lots of research has been taken place with lots of people asking them to self-evaluate, give an idea of how good their English is, or their whichever language it is we're talking about. So if I asked you, you'd probably say, it's okay, or it's quite good, or not bad, but what does that mean? And if you ask them to then map it onto a scale, say a 6-point scale, what you find in the research is that we all have a very inflated opinion of our own abilities, that we all think we're a little bit better than we actually are. And this is the same for students, very much the same for students. So I'm sure you get students coming into your organisations, your institutions, who say, well, I don't need an English course, I speak English at home, my English is fine. I was at a presentation once, a certificate giving presentation up in Bihar, and the institution there had mandated that all of the students went on a business English certificate course. And they had got some of the students to come and speak to the next wave of students that were coming through to say what the value of the course had been. And one girl stood up and she said, when I was told I had to go on this course, I thought, why me? We speak English at home, my English is good enough, I don't need to go on the course. And within the first lesson, she realised, no, she didn't really use English very well. And as the other panelists were saying, she didn't know how to write an extended piece of coherent, logical, well-crafted text. She didn't know how to write a good report that was going to have impact. She didn't know how to string and connect ideas to be able to review one piece of information with another piece of information, whether it's a spoken piece or a written piece. She didn't know how to do that. She had some superficial chit-chat that she'd been using at home and with her friends. But then she began to realize that there was value in being focused on what is good communication. I would argue this is exactly the same in the UK. It's not just your students in India, but it's young people around the world have lost the focus on what is actually, or maybe don't have it, as I think one of the panelists has said, they're too young, they've not been in the world of work, they don't know what's actually required. But when you put them on a course which shows them what's actually required in the writing of a good report, or a review, or a proposal, or being able to give a presentation effectively, coherently, then they begin to realize there's an awful lot to learn about communication. And it is the role of academics, it seems, in my mind, even academics at the K stage of a K-12 program, to start that journey as soon as possible. The sooner you can start improving language, the better chances the students, when they come to get their jobs, will have of being able to nail the one that they actually want.